Welcome back. You are still watching Morning Live. Media personality Treasure Tshabalala's career spans over 40 years in the entertainment business. His involvement in broadcasting began in the 70s, and thanks to his deep and silky voice, he's always stood out. South African TV audiences first got introduced to him when he appeared in the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. He's since appeared in various TV shows as well as adverts. This morning we chat to uBaba Treasure on what led to his longevity in this really crazy business of media. uBaba Treasure, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Oh, good. Nice of you to have me around, And welcome to our listeners and everyone, or viewers, rather.
Viewers. uBaba Treasure, your voice is quite distinct. It's probably one of those things about you that really stands out. When did you first discover that, number one, it was special and that you could actually use it to make money and entertain people?
Yeah, it was actually quite late in my life. I was around about in my late 20s, I think, yeah, that's when I realized. When everyone's voice, breaks,
Yes.
That's when I realized there's something here.
Oh, okay. You've, been an actor, a voice artist. You've just really been a part of the South African entertainment landscape for a very long time. And you've managed to have that longevity in your career, which a lot of people struggle with. Do you think the fact that as an artist yourself, you are versatile has helped you not only spread your wings, but also stay this long in the business? Or what do you think has led to your longevity?
Yeah, I think basically longevity has played a very great part in it, yeah. Because I'm a kind of person who never sticks into one thing, I've always multitasks. So I think that helped me a lot, because when one bus stops, then I board the next one and I move on, but still retaining the one that I got off,
Let's talk about your love for radio. I believe that started way back when in Swaziland. You picked up the mic and there was something there.
Right.
Explore that with us. What was it like for you to explore that avenue of the world of radio, where it really is a theater of the mind?
Yeah.
Your presence is felt in other ways other than you actually being seen by viewers.
Yeah, it was actually a very interesting career that I actually chose here. Not by choice. I had to live. I had to do something. So, and I landed on this, and it seemed quite an interesting thing because it wasn't usual. It wasn't like your everyday thing, like being a teacher or being a nurse,
policeman,
or being a doctor. Something that we could imagine and get something out of. But this was like a mystery, and it was something exciting that was not common amongst people, especially people of my color. So I just got it and I thought, hey, I think I'm going to stick to this and do something out of it.
And do you remember who introduced you to the world of radio?
Radio? There was a gentleman called, what was this guy's name? Rob Vickers, I think it was. Yeah. He was actually the station manager of Radio SR, which is where I started. I was introduced to radio through Radio SR, which means Swazi Radio, yeah.
And upon coming back to South Africa, you became part of, what many would call the absolute dream team. You're amongst the likes of Shadow Twala, Wilson Binkosi,
Right.
Mr. Lawrence Dube, just making magic behind the mic.
Yeah.
What were those years at Metro FM like for you? We see Wilson Binkosi still there today, and he's done every show on Metro FM.
Definitely.
What was it like in those early days?
Wow. It was so exciting and so new. It was like a novelty. So we embraced the whole thing, and we watched ourselves grow into brands, and it was exciting, being a pioneer in something that was not really common amongst our people. Yeah, so it was good.
And a lot of people, with being in the business that we're in comes a lot of fame, brand building, recognition. How do you remain humble when you know that the minute you step out of your house, you now belong to anyone who spots you?
It takes guts, to actually embrace this and be that. But, I think confidence and actually, getting feedback from people that whatever you're doing hits them. So that gives you a lot of confidence, and you're able to move on knowing that at least there's someone who's listening to me. Because radio is quite a strange thing, You're there talking. You're not even sure if anyone's listening to you.
Yes.
So if you get just that one call saying, I'm listening to you. Then, you know, you can count maybe 10,000 or so people who are listening just because of that one voice.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
And, you know, being a broadcaster, a black broadcaster in those days when our country was really going through a lot of difficult times, and you, I would say, were one of the voices that, you know, black people look to in terms of getting information and getting entertainment. We had the likes of Mama Miriam Makeba, Mr. Kaifa Seminya, Abigail Kubega, you know, expressing their views in terms of what was happening in our country through their music.
Right.
Your role as a black entertainment voice, how important was that, and was there any activism allowed? Because radio does work slightly differently today than it did back then.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of activism, I remember, and but we had to do it subtly, you see, because we're under certain, you know, conditions, and we're actually working from places like these, you know. Then the SABC was not what it is today, you know. It is looked at with a different eye. But we had to make means of getting across, whether speaking in, you know, code language or whatever, but we had to find a way of getting across there and get people to understand that we're actually talking to them, even if we're not making things explicit.
And, you know, Treasure, what can our generation of broadcasters learn from you guys? Even though everything seems different, but the mediums themselves have remained the same.
Exactly.
And the crafts themselves have remained the same. Acting will always be acting. Being a radio personality will always be just that. But what are some of the takeaways that you think the two generations can exchange when it comes to knowledge and the imparting of, you know, how one needs to upskill their skill?
That's it. Yeah, communications is something very, very strange. You have to give your best. You actually have to do the best with the least, with what you have. We went through terrible times when we didn't even have the state-of-the-art equipment that you guys are exposed to these days. But we worked with that, with what we had, and we just passed the ball from one player to the next and made sure that the product at the end of the day becomes perfect, even if it was theatrical, you know, even if it was in the mind and not actually happening in reality. But we worked with what we had to make the best out of a bad situation. And
speaking of doing the best, I mean, there were so many injustices as well, I think, in your time in terms of pay, just huge disparities in what agencies and, you know, artists were getting. How important is the education behind the craft? To know what it is you're worth, to know how to empower yourself so that you know that you get the best out of your talent.
Yeah, it's very important to do that. In other words, you must honor your craft. You must work around it, get to know more about it so that you can have means of owning, you know, owning your work and being responsible for whatever happens to you. Because we've been too dependent in the past. I think that was one of the most you know, disappointing things. We depended on other people to do things for us, you see. So it means you guys now have the chance of growing up and actually handling the things yourself, you know, so that you know that no one is actually, you know, doing things behind your back. You're actually responsible for your work, and you're able to look after your work and make sure that you guide it the way you want it to go.
Goodness, I feel like I'm in a masterclass, just this well of knowledge. We did ask you, our viewer, to please send in any questions that you might have for Mr. Treasure Tshabalala. And I just want to take a look at one of the questions, and we'll come back to them slightly later. But a lot of artists tend to feel weird about seeing their work. Have you ever felt that you did not want to watch yourself or listen to yourself?
It's actually, other people get discouraged, you know, when they watch their work.
Is that a good thing? Because the self-criticism kicks in, and it can be either one of two things. It can either you're watching to take notes to see how you can improve, or you're watching to put yourself down. How do you draw the line?
You have to be strict and yet kind to yourself. You know, in other words, don't beat yourself up, but don't spare yourself either. You know, look at it in both ways.
It's quite a fine line.
It's very fine. Yeah.
Let's take a look at just some of the questions that have been coming in via our social media platforms. If we can just go to that first question. And it's from Martin, who says, uBaba Tshabalala, I'm glad that you still grace us with your presence from your days at Metro FM, the Generations Days, and other various media platforms. What is your staying power? And I believe we did ask this question earlier.
Yeah, we did go through it. Yeah, but just being humble and, staying on the ground,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
The next one says, our very own Barry White. That voice though, Treasure Tshabalala and Judge Zondo, their voices. Shoo. All right, I just want to... I need to know what inspired him to love the media and what he does. Did he benefit a lot on this category of media more than others? So which was more beneficial to you? Was it the acting? Was it the voice work? Was it the theater? Was it the radio work that you did?
I love them all. I never really split them up. I just took it as the entertainment industry. Yeah. And like I said, I like multitasking. So I just play around the entertainment industry.
All right.
And I make sure that I stay within the entertainment industry and not sort of lurch into other things. Yeah.
All right. I believe we have another question. And this one is from Edwin Komani, who says, morning, I just want to know that is he ready to go to vote and what is the party of his choice? Well, Edwin, your vote is your secret. But are you ready to vote?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to vote. I'm registered, but I'll keep my vote secret.
Well, fewer shares.
You guess who I'm going to vote for.
Is Treasure Tshabalala really an old man? I remember years ago he was at Happy Valley nightclub in Zakane.
Yeah.
A DJ. He was a gentleman. Why all of a sudden grey hair? So one day you're this young man, and then the next day you've got grey hair. How do you explain that?
Yeah, let's talk about the Lufuto. Yeah, but I'm quite old. Yeah, maybe I don't look my age, but I'm quite grown up.
I want to talk about who has been your greatest critic outside of yourself. Who was that person that you went back to for feedback, or that person that you took notes from or took advice from as you worked your way in trying to really perfect what it is you were doing?
I'll say my mother. The lady who gives birth to me was really not hard on me, but she really expected the best, nothing but the best.
What are some of the things that she would say?
Yeah, like, we would, like, what do they say? Look at my work and criticize and do everything. Say, nah, there you don't look like you know what you're doing. Or there you don't look like or feel like you're owning what you're talking about. You see?
Sure.
So these post-mortems used to happen quite a lot. Yeah.
I love that you
where
term
she
them
dissect me.
post-mortems.
And I took it. And I think that's one of the things that actually made me have the tenacity to stay on and do all these things, because I took criticism.
My last question to you is just about the entertainment industry. It's one of the most sought after industries by young people. It's really a struggle to get in because it's not always regulated. We don't always know the right channels. We don't always know the right people or the right schools or the right agents. There's so much that is not on our side as young people, who want to grow or enter into the space. What's your advice?
What I would advise young people to do, it's okay to get to tertiary, do whatever, or get to schools of special schools and get the knowledge and the professionalism. But what's most important is actually to nurture and look after the self as an individual. You see, that will make you be open to all other avenues, you see, because you've got number one in place. Then anything that comes to number one will be able to be sorted out perfectly. You see. So do whatever you can to find out who you are, where you come from. Then you'll be able to know where you're going to.
And not be afraid to start at the bottom. Because I think a lot of us want to
we want to start
be the superstar overnight.
But you really, really have to go down to the beginning, because everything starts there and then it rises up gradually. You see.
Bob Treasure, you've been such a joy. Thank you so much for coming this morning.
Welcome.
Well, some have even described him as a man who has an ageless voice. We've been speaking to Bob Treasure Tshabalala, who is still running in the broadcasting industry with his Adverts radio show and, of course, acting roles. Do stay with us here on Morning Live. We'll bring you a whole lot more when we return.